What's that?
No, sorry, downstairs. Spring, strawberry, kiwi.
It's probably never seen a strawberry or a kiwi ever.
Yes, it has. Excuse me. Yes, it did.
Yes.
It was in the fridge, in the fruit section.
You should drink hot water. We had the Gemara in Pesachim, the hot water heals people. Right. We're up to the afternoon, Beis on with Aleph, 3 lines from the top. The bishop. What is? Is it?
Because water, if you take a spoon, stick it in water, it goes clean. Obviously, Coke is better for you.
I hear. Okay.
It's like chocolate comes from plants.
Yes.
Chocolate beans.
Yes, it's a lot of chocolate.
Is a plant, which means the chocolate is a vegetable.
It's a salad.
Right, okay. We had the Machlekes, the Beis and Tanakama after we've discussed the most of the health of Coca-Cola and chocolate. We'll get back into the Gemara. The Gemara tells us we had the Machlekes, Tanakama and Beis whether it was 2 curtains or 1 curtain in the second Beis HaMikdash. Rabbi Yossi holds there was only 1 curtain, Tanakama holds there was 2 curtains. Now, that's all in the second Beis HaMikdash. In the first Beis HaMikdash, there was a very wide wall, an Amot Traxin it was called. Does anybody remember the 2 explanations to the word Traxin? Trak means outside, sin means inside. We weren't sure if it was inside or outside. Or trak means to close sin, that which came from Sinai. To close off the luchas that came from Sinai. Traxin. The word traxin comes up a lot, by the way, if you read Yomi. Traxin. It was an Amot Traxin, Malachim. Traxin. So Machlekes. So we had 2 explanations. So the Gemara now discusses what level of kedusha did this Amot Traxin have. We're up to 4 lines from the top of Nun Beis Amud Aleph. We're past halfway through Yoma. Can you imagine? Quite a bit actually, more than halfway. Amot Traxin leichlu boi chachamim. The chachamim never decided. Is it like the inside or like the outside? So if you're standing in the Amot Traxin, it's a machlokes. The Gemara they never made a decision whether it's like you're inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim or outside Kodesh HaKadoshim. So the question is it inside or outside? Why would they not be sure? The house which Hashem Shlomo built. It was 60 long, 20 wide, 30 high. By the way, that included the Kodesh HaKadoshim, so it's 40 for the Kodesh and 20 for the Kodesh HaKadoshim, right? 40 and 20. It's interesting. What was the Mishkan? Does anybody know? 30. 20 for the Kodesh, 10 for Kodesh HaKadoshim. There's a Rashi that says, very good at what? It's in proportion, right? That's 60, 40 and 20. The Mishkan was 30, 20 and 10. It was in proportion. Okay. Vuksiv. There was 40 amos. That was 40 amos. That was for the Heichel. The Dvi is the wall which we call Traxin. So, what we call the Traxin, the Gemara calls it the Dvi. The front of the Dvi, 20 by 20 by 20. Which, by the way, if you remember, the Mishkan was how high? No, Mishkan, how high? 10. Mishkan was 10 hours high. Moshe Rabbeinu, as a Mishkan, Moshe Rabbeinu had to lift it to 10 hours high. And the Shlomo HaMelech was 20, which is also double. Tais asks this kasha, which is a very big question, is that if you read these psukim, they less self-contradict. The first pasuk says it was Beis Shlomo, Shishim. How high was the pasuk says? Shloshim amikos, 30 hours high. When they come to the Kurdish, so we say the Kurdish was 40 by 20, the 40, 20. When it comes to the height, there it says 30, there it says 20. Oh, Tony's way down to the question. Do you hear the question? It's an unbelievable question. How can you in one place say the height was 30 and in one place say the height was 20? And the very, very interesting thing is that the Gemara actually in Bava Basra asks the question. But what's very interesting is that Rashi in Malachim asks the question, and Rashi in Malachim does not bring the answer which the Gemara brings. It's one of these very disturbing things I give a show. But not often, Ramban, often they ask a question and they give an answer. And you look at the Gemara, the Gemara asks the same question with a different answer. The idea being that there's the simple pshat in the pasuk, and there's like where the Gemara actually not mechuyev, at least the Rishonim did not feel obligated to explain the pasuk just because. So Rashi tells us that there was an upstairs and a downstairs. So 20 amas was like here this, and there's another amas, 10 amas on another room on top. That's how Rashi explains the 30. The Gemara of Abbas answers that there was actually kruvim inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which were 10 amas high. So it's 30 amas from the floor, 20 amas from the top of the kruvim. Okay, so that reconciles the contradiction between the 30 and the 20 in their height. Regarding the length, it says there was 40 for the Kodesh and 20 for the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Now, we've not measured the middle wall, which was how long, how wide? An amma. Doesn't say anything about it. Says the Gemara. We do not know. Amma tracks it whether it was part of the 20, it was part of the 40, and that's the suffix. Says the Gemara, that can't not be that suffix. Maybe it was a separate, and therefore there's no reason to be a suffix because of the 40 and 20. It was completely suffix. We're only counting the space, not the walls. I'll prove it to you. Today we count the walls separately. That's not this is the Mishnah in Midas, which the Mishnah goes through the entire second base of Mikdash. The Heichal Meah was 100 by 100, the room Meah with 100 height. And here they've got a picture. Oh, maybe
usually on big.
yes. But oh, thank you very much. What is it? Is it streaming on you? Is it using yours? Okay. Heichal Koisel Olam Chomesh was 5. But Olam Achase was 11. Koisel Heichal, the wall of the next wall. That means there was one wall of the Olam. The next wall was of the Heichal Sheish. How much are we up to so far? 5 and 11 is 16, plus another 6 is 22. Another 40 in length. So that is how much? 62. Va'amot Shraksin was an amo to divide between the Kodesh and the Kodesh HaKadoshim. We're up to 63. The Esim Amo Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim, and you've got another 20 from the inside of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. We're up to 83. Koisel HaHeichel, 83. The wall of the Heichel Sheish was 6, that's 89. The Hatod was small little rooms all the way around the Beis Hamikdash was 6. The Koisel HaTor, the wall of the Torah was Chomesh was 5. So that comes to 100 if you count it all up. That is the length of the 100. So it's little rooms, or many rooms. In fact, the Mishnah tells us there were 3 layers of rooms, right? That means around the Beis Hamikdash, like you've got over here in these cupboards, with little rooms off the cupboard, around the Beis Hamikdash, there were loads and loads of rooms. They use them for many different things, for kelim, storage, for many needs. And Tosfos is very, very disturbed. And it's very interesting that here what happens is Tosfos asks a question and he gives many answers to one question. Is that when you look in the Pasuk, it actually says that the lowest room was 5 amos, the next room was 6 amos, and the next room was 7 amos, which is the opposite of this, not like our Gemara, which is the bottom room was 6 amos. And I just wanted to tell you, because it's very sadistic if you understand Malachim and Yomi and also in Taibet and Cheskel. The walls of the Beis Hamikdash were made out of big stones, massive stones. And what happened was, they didn't want to drill into the stones. What they did was, they made rooms. The first room, the bottom room was 5 amos. The next room was 6 amos. The next room was 7 amos wide. And what they did was, they just had the supports latched on to the walls of the Beis Hamikdash. And the extra width was the support for the next wall. So what happened was, you had a wall like this, and the bottom bricks were much wider, like you can see in the coastal. And then what happened was like this. You've got a very, very wide stone. Next stone is not so wide. So you can put the roof on top of it, and then you've got a room, 5 amos. The next stone is not as wide as the next one. So then you make another platform on top, and you've got another tip. So that's how it was. The bottom was 5 amos, very thick wall. The top next was 6 amos. So on the outside, it was uniform. On the inside, it was uniform. The only difference was that the outer walls were, that means the difference between the 2 walls, there was these big rocks, and the walls of the actual Beis Hamikdash were wider at the bottom and now at the top, and that's how you built the rooms. That's if you've got a clear picture, I'm going to see people can be a bit baffled. It doesn't show a picture. Again, you've got, because the uniform of the outside of the rooms, not the outside of the Beis Hamikdash, outside of the rooms. Yeah, the outside of the Beis Hamikdash, you couldn't really, because they always put roofs there. For every room that you were in, you could just see that room. You could see a wall, you were 5 amos room. Next one was 6 amos. It was like this, the walls, and then there was a wall over here, the bricks, the stones going out, and on each ledge you would put out wood, and then that's how you'd have the walls of the Beis Hamikdash. Okay. So Tosfos' main answer is that we're discussing the second level, not the bottom level. The bottom level was 5 amos, this was 6 amos. Okay. So the verse is like this. Elo, what was the Safik Kedushosei, the Kedusha, Kedifnimi, Kelachutz, whether it was from the inside or the outside? Yosef asks the question like this. We're going to discuss now a number of psukim where the difference between putting the comma makes a huge difference. Ben once said, example, it's time to eat grandma. How's it go, Ben? You say it again. What was it?
Time to eat grandma.
It's time to eat grandma. It's time to eat grandma. It doesn't make any sense. Don't you eat your grandmother. It's time to eat grandma. So now, this is the next long discussion, and this is going to be the Sophic regarding the wall of the Beis Hamikdash and many other questions. The Gemara is going to have the same question where the comma makes a huge difference where what the pasuk means. The Gemara is like this. The first Gemara quotes the pasuk. Pasuk says, "Udvir b'soich habayis." This wall was inside the house, mipnimo, on the inside. Heichen, he prepared this to sit in Shemesh on b'sar Hashem, to put the on of Hashem. And if you have to change the girl. So if you ask the question as follows. Basically, the question is the word mipnimo on the inside. Is it part of the first half of the pasuk or the second half of the pasuk? The boiler is like this. That means the room inside the house on the inside. Heichin lositin shom. He prepared to put there the oven. That means inside the wall which he prepared was the place to put the oven. So the oven had to be within the inside of that room. There was a room which was mipnimo. Again, it's easy if you see the pasuk in front of you. By me, it's pasuk dalet. The pasuk is dvir b'seich. There was the dvir is the wall itself. So it says like this: dvir b'seich room inside the house, mipnimo, inside that wall, he prepared to put the room of Hashem. So according to that, he prepared to put the oven inside the wall. So what happened was you've got a wall, and from once you go past the wall, that is where you can put the oven. Alternatively, you can read the pasuk with Pedima from the beginning, as the beginning of the pasuk. So therefore, like this, the inside, that wall is part of the inside. The wall is the pnimo, is the inside, and all of that is prepared to put in the Bris Hashem. Was he unclear? There are 5 sukkim in the Torah which it's not clear the meaning of the pasuk. 5 sukkim in the Torah where you know this famous story. There was once a very learned priest who said that he'll challenge the one yid of the Kehillah to a challenge, and anybody who gets the better will if he gets the better, all the Jews will have to convert to Christianity. Jews get it better, then they'll leave them alone. And everybody was terrified until one very simple yid came along and he said, I've got something. I don't mind being challenging him. So what happened was that day they made the rule. They both stood them on the bridge, and they said the first person to say I don't know will be thrown straight into the water. So the Galach, this guy, was so convinced that this simple yid will never get him out. He said, you go first. So the yid said, he quoted the Rashi Pashas, end of Pashas, told us it is. The Rashi says that Eim Yaakov Esav, Rashi says, I don't know what the pasuk's teaching us. So he said to him, can you explain to me what Rashi is saying? He translated the Galach. I don't know. And the guards there threw into the water. Anyway, everybody was very, very impressed with this very simple yid, and they asked him, what's going on? So he said, I've got a Beis Chumash. It's quite old Chumash. Nowadays, people don't use it so much. It's a Yiddish translation on Rashi. A Yiddish translation nowadays, people don't use. And then I saw the Yiddish translation, he writes, I don't know. If the Beis Yehuda who translated Rashi doesn't know, how could he know? We didn't realize that is actually a translation of Rashi. But there are 5 sukkim in the Torah which we do not know what the pasuk means. Can you imagine? 5 sukkim we don't know. What are the 5 sukkim? Se'ez meshukot, the top of the line on the base on the base. Se'ez meshukot mocha overcome. We'll go through each one. Separate. Each one's a different pasuk, and we have to work out what they did not know. The first pasuk describes after Cain killed Hevel. After Cain's korban was accepted, and Hevel's korban. After Cain's korban was not accepted, and Hevel's korban was accepted, Cain got very, very upset. So Hashem said to him that what are you worried about? If you do tshuva, you'll be okay. And if you don't, you'll have this punishment lying on top of your head. So let's read the pasuk. If you behave yourself, se'es. The word se'es in this pasuk, there are 2 ways to understand it. I'm going to read the 2 ways, and then we'll go on. Hello, if you behave yourself, do tshuva se'es, you'll be forgiven. The word se'es can be forgiven. Or if you don't, you'll have the sin forever. Or hello, if you're good, that's fine and well. And if you're not going to be good, if you will not be good, you will have to carry the burden of your sin yourself. And se'es doesn't mean forgiveness, means carrying the burden of the sin. Teresis asks a couple of questions. First of all, that the psukim over here are not in order. And second of all, some of the psukim seem so obvious what the real translation means. Like, for example, over here, Alim Tativ Se'es, of course, it fits in much better to say the first way, because otherwise, what's the vav of the ve'im? Okay. Another pasuk is Meshukodim. The pasuk says like this: the word Meshukodim means adorned. It means inscripted. It means, what's a good word in English? Meshukodim, engraved. It's more than engraved. Rabbi writes, okay, engraved with drawings. So the question is, the word Meshukodim, is it going on to the gvim, which is the goblets, or is it going on the buttons and the flowers? So Meshukodim, the full gvim Meshukodim, or Meshukodim kaftu pochel, that the flowers have to be Meshukodim. The Rambam Paskins in build the Beis Hamikdash, that since we don't know, you have to make them all engraved, both the givim and the kaftu Meshukodim, because we don't know which way out. The third pasuk is Mochel. When Amalek attacked Klal Yisrael, Moshe tells Yeshua, go and fight Amalek. There are two ways to understand the words Mochel. Vayomer Moshe Yeshua, b'chal lanu anoshim, choose for us men to fight. They say, go and fight Amalek. Mochel, that means tomorrow you should fight Amalek. That's one explanation. Or, but say, go and fight Amalek immediately. Mochel, tomorrow, on I'll go up to the mountain to down. That's two ways to understand the words Mochel. Is it Mochel when the battle will come, or Mochel when Moshe will down? V'kom, so the pasuk says like this: B'sodom, when Yaakov Avinu was upset with Shimon and Levi, right? What did they do? What did Shimon and Levi do wrong? Killed Shechem and sold Joseph into captivity. So the pasuk says, "B'sodom al-tovei nafshi, b'kolam atechat kvodi, ki ba'apom ol goish." With the anger they killed the man. With Sodom ikvushoy, they uprooted the ox oval. So you can read the word oval as being part of the ox. Sodom ikvushoy oval, they uprooted the wicked ox. Or you can read it, or with Sodom ikvushoy, the next pasuk, or apom ki oz, the anger should be cursed. Again, the Rishash asks, he doesn't understand how he cannot know pasuk. Oval is from the next pasuk. He can't possibly read it. Okvushoy oval. How can you possibly read oval before? So the Gvul Savi writes that sometimes the question is, the ends of the pasuk, is that something which we always knew which pasuk is the end of the pasuk? Pashas we did. It's a shayla. And finally, v'kom. V'kom is Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu that you're going to die, and the nation of Klal Yisrael is going to do Averos and Silver Zon. So Hashem says to Moshe, v'kom. That's one way of reading it. You'll die, v'kom, and you'll get to Fatchias HaMesim. And then it says, the Klal Yisrael do Averos. Alternatively, you'll die, and the Klal Yisrael will do Averos. So it's a question how to read the word v'kom. Now, he only found 5 psukim which he wasn't clear. According to the explanation we just said, there's another pasuk. The pasuk referring to the wall of the Beis Hamikdash was on the inside of the Beis Hamikdash on the outside. V'tanya, hu Yosef ish Hutzal, hu Yosef Abba, hu Yosef ben Yehuda, hu Yosef ben Gurarya, hu Yosef ben Gamliel, hu Yosef ben Mahal, hu Mash hu Yosef ben Akavish. We had a very, very lot of names. So you see, it's the same person. If it's the same person, how could it be that in one place it says I've got 5 psukim which I'm not clear, and another pasuk has got 6 pasuk? As well, with the Raisa Lekker, with the Nevi, there were 5 psukim in the Torah, wasn't clear in the Nevi, there were more. If anyone the Raisa is the Selected, there wasn't anyone in the Torah, make it the boy of Chistav Ishtach is now, but they saw my yellow, always cross, Bismach, Zvach, Shalom, poem. Or Idum, individual poem. The pasuk says that when Moshe Rabbeinu was preparing for Matan Torah, what happened was he set the Nari B'nai Yisrael, the firstborn of Klal Yisrael. And what happened was they brought oilos, which were a normal oilot, Vayisbechu Shlomim LaHashem poem. And the question is, the word povim, is it going back only on the shlomim, or is it also going back on the olos? There's the olos, ... and povim. The poems go back on the olos, just on the shlomim. Says the more, Rav Chisda b'sabklei, listen to the Meshitale. Rav Chisda didn't know, but Yisrael Yehuda did know. So there are 5 psukim Yisrael Yehuda didn't know, plus another one in the Nevi'im, and Rav Chisda didn't know a pasuk in the end of Pas Mishpat. Okay, we're going back to our Mishnah, the continuation of the Avodah Beis Hamikdash and Yom Kippur. And what we have over here is at the Machlokas, how many kurtas there were. Tanakama says there were 2. Rabbi Yossi says there was 1. The next Mishnah goes b'shittas Tanakama. Hachitzona, the outer one, it was hanging in from the dome. Can you see a picture of it curling in minadoim? It was curled in minadoim. There's a Machlokas in the Rishonim how they curled it in. Rashi held, look at Rashi, That it was constantly open. Rashi held that the curtain was pulled open with like a gold hook, and that kept it open. The Beis says no. What happened was it had bows to tie it all the way down, and they loosened the bottom bows, and they would pull it open when they wanted to come in. Okay. Upnimis, when that softened, the other one was open on the other side. It was pulled open from the other side. Mahalech ben would walk between them. The Yerushalmi says, as we pointed out yesterday, I didn't see this yesterday, but today, that the Yerushalmi says to walk through, we mentioned yesterday, it's quite tight. It's only 50, 60 centimeters. And he has to walk through with two, and one of them is burning hot coals. The Yerushalmi says he used to use his elbows to push the curtains apart so they should be able to get through. What?
The poles are longer though.
The poles of the what?
Of the coals.
Yeah, they went underneath his elbow.
I know, but they further, you walk like that.
No, so you walk like that. You walk like that. And then when you've got your elbows pushing the curtains open, and then you're okay. Malach b'nei would walk between the match Magel at Safin until he came to the Safin Magel at Safin. So he walked all the way to the end. Then he walked along, and when he came to that end, he didn't go into the room, but rather he kept by the back of the curtain, walking this way. That means he walked like this, not in the angle, but rather he walked to the side of the curtain. He hasn't got such. He's got a picture over here of them walking between the curtains. But after he came out of the curtains, can you see the picture? Or is it too far for you to see? Can you see it? So what happens afterwards? He kept by the curtain when he walked in. Mahalech l'smoila, he kept to his left. Ima poriches leporiches. Ashu magia al He put down the ashpan, the fire pan, ben shnei abadim. Sova es haketeres hakav gecholim. He piled the keteres on the gecholim. With this malach labayis kol yoshon, the whole house became full of smoke. Yotze bole b'derech beis knisosi. He left the same way as he came in. What does it mean? He left the same way as he came in? Backwards. He walked backwards, right? He walked backwards. The Me'ivi writes that he walked in pitch black. There's a machlokes whether there was any windows, because there was no windows, because he walked in pitch black. There's a Yerushalmi that says that the oven, there was only an orange in the first Beis Mikdash, not in the second Beis Mikdash. And what happened was, during the first Beis Mikdash, the oven had a spiritual light which you could guide him. But Lamaisa, without it, he was in the pitch black. So he walked backwards. Very good. So then carries on. By Derech basically it's also the way he came in. Down in the short tefillah Beis HaChitzon, in the outside Chitzon. Where's that? Which room did he daven in? In the Kodesh, not in the Kodesh HaKadosh. I mean, daven in the Kodesh. That means the three, right? You've got the Ulam, the Kodesh, and the Kodesh HaKadoshim. He davened in the Kodesh. No. He never turned round. He turned back on himself. He walked backwards. He didn't daven long not to get people scared. Why would people be scared?
That was only the second episode, no?
But they always were scared. So therefore, he never davened a long tefillah. Says what we're talking about. What was in the first Beis Mikdash? A wall, very good. The second Beis Mikdash. We have an oven, there was no oven, but Tanya Mishnigda's oven, once the oven was put away, hidden. Nigdas are imoits in Senes Amon, the bottle of the Mon, it's Luchish and Amishcha, and the jug of the Shal Amishcha. That's next week's Parsha. Aaron's stick with the almonds and flowers, and the gift that the Plishim gave to Christ to Hashem. Shenema. You should put it away by the side of the oven, and they put the gift. What happened was the Plishtim captured the oven in the days of who? Sure. Are you sure? No. The last day of Eli's life, and the shock of it made him fall off his chair and died. No, it was the Eli, was Shmuel became the new leader, but that day Eli died. And what happened was they grabbed the oven, and what happened was when they had the oven in their midst, what happened to the people? A lot of them died first. The doggone, the Avodah Zarah would keep falling over. Yeah, we say in davening, And some people have in the Siddur pause for a moment. Hashem Shemaim also. Before we explain what's that praise is what the Pelishtim came to recognize, that all the gods, because all the gods in Pelishtim would all collapse and the Orim would stay. Because you don't want to make it sound as if you're saying the Hashem and the Hashem is also Lilim is nothing. So that's okay.
That's where the force comes into.
Yeah. Umi Gonzo Yeshua Gonzo. When did Yeshua Melech live? End of the first Beis Hamikdash. How many kings were after him? We once had it in Shkolim. How many kings lived after him before the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed? He had 3 sons and 1 grandson becoming king, and unfortunately they all either killed. Only one of them. I don't know when we discussed it. That's right, very good. His grandson Yechonyo before his uncle Tzidkiyahu. Tzidkiyahu was the last one. The Beis said, who was his father of Yeshua? His father was Omon, his grandfather was Menashe, very, very wicked kings. And Yeshua Melech changed everything. I've mentioned already. At the age of 8, he became king and he rebuilt everything. So he was one who hid it. So the Pasuk says, Ma Rosh Gonzo, Rosh Kosev, Yolich Hashemulischol, Isbak Hashem Takabalecho, Omad Gonzo, Shdema, Vayomer Levim Amevinim, Lechol Yisrael, Akdoshim LaHashem, Tduas On HaKadosh Beis Hashem, Shvalo Shtema Melech Don Melech Yisrael, Ein Lechem Masa B'Kosev, no longer will you carry to the shoulders after Yisrael Hashem Lekeichem V'Samo Yisrael. He told them to put the Oron in the place of the Beis Hamikdash. And the obvious question is, what do we put the Oron in the place of Beis Hamikdash? Where's the Oron been till now? The answer is, what did he mean when he said put the Oron in the house of Beis Hashem? He meant hide the Oron within the chambers of the Beis Hashem. The Rambam in Hilchos Beis Hamikdash writes, what in Beis Hamikdash? What does the Rambam write? That when Shlomo Melech built the Beis Hamikdash, he saw Beruach HaKodesh, then the Beis Hamikdash is going to be destroyed. So he already prepared hidden chambers for the future, to hide things for the future. So for Yeshua Melech he told him to hide it. Now, how do we know that when Yeshua Melech hid the Oron, we hid all the other things with it? The Gemara learns now a number of Gzerah Shavos, meaning a number of psukim we're going to Gzerah Shav. Again, how many things were hidden with Oron? The Oron, the Mon, the Shemna Mishcha, the stick of Aaron, and the Plishtim's gift. What? No, that wasn't hidden by Yeshua. That was hidden by Chizkiyahu Melech, not Yeshua. And that was a different thing here. 5 things were hidden together. So we're going to do a few Gzerah Shavos. The Torah says when it comes to the Oron, it says, that's referring to the Oron, and it says regarding the Mon, the 10 Shomom lo yarima. V'asa Deros, referring to the Misham and Mishcha, it says Deros Seichem, and the same thing it says regarding the Mon Deros Seichem. V'asa Mishmeres by the tzeles sorry, by the Mata Aaron, it says the Mishmeres goes for the Mary. So you see what's hidden. So what asks the Kasha, our Mishnah, what's it talking about? If it's about the first Beis Hamikdash, there was no Poroichas. If it's about the second Beis Hamikdash, there was only a wall. If it's the second Beis Hamikdash, there was no Oron. Answers what only Hamikdash Sheni. My Gia Oron, mock him on to the place of the Oron. Between the 2 sticks. Answers the Gemara, approximately where the sticks were. So our mission is one the second Beis Hamikdash, and of course you didn't go to exactly where the Oron was. You went to where the Oron used to be. And Bein Abadim is where the Bein Abadim used to be. Tanan, command Omar Tzuva. We had the machlokes previously. What's the best way to put the keteros on the fire? Is it better to put it slowly or fast? Slowly, if you do it fast, what do you gain? It's not covered for the Kohen Gadol to stay a long time in the base of the Kodesh Kodashim. To do it slowly, what do you gain? The smoke spreads better. I guess it goes much more evenly. Our Mishnah says tzuva. Tzuva means a pile. So our Mishnah says like the man Doma, they should be a pile. Here I've got 2 pictures. 2 nice type of pictures always. Here I've got loads of pictures. Here. When you've got a fire pan and you're going to put keteros on it, which way would you start the keteros? Start the closest to you and put it as you're going closer and closer, or further and come closer and closer and closer? Why?
If you do it underneath you, then you get smoke and everything in the way.
Even better, very good. Why? You'll burn yourself, because when you put the keteros on, it catches fire. So if you light first, when you light Shabbos candles, you should always light the further candles than the nearer candles. So if you light the nearer candles and then you put your arm over, you'll burn yourself. But there's a logic to say, maybe so you can guess, why you should do first the inner than the outer. Very good. You don't go over a mitzvah. You've got the fire pan. You stop putting the keteris later till those coals are sitting there waiting for you to put the keteris on. So if you've got machlokas, which way round to do it? First the inner ones, then the outer ones, because ein mavin ala mitzvahs. Or first the outer ones, then the inner ones, then you shouldn't get burnt. Says the Gemara, Toli Chodot, Seva Pnima, the inside of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, Shi Chutzale, which is further away from it. But Tali Doch Seva Chutza, the outside of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that is away from the orange, Shi Pnima Lo. It's better to do the one which is further away from you. Why? This Mishnah is referring to the keteris which was done every single day. Every single day they put keteris on Mizbeach Hazor, and they would put keteris on Mizbeach Hazor. So that Mishnah says, they teach me, Zoe, be careful. Top of Nun Gimel Dalef, top line. Don't start near because you might get burnt. And therefore, we see from over here that we always start from the outer rather than getting burnt. And therefore, the Rishonim discuss why would there be a minute to differentiate between the Mizbeach Hazor and the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Anybody want to suggest? The Kodesh HaKadoshim, the coals were not quite as hot because there was much more distance till you got there. The Mizbeach Hazor was much more. I want to do a bit more. First of all, tomorrow and the next day is that for quite long. On Friday, we always do a bit shorter. Let's just do a bit more. It's easy to get more. Here we have the famous question, what is the correct way to do it? Do you put the keteris on the fire before you go into Kodesh HaKadoshim or after you go into Kodesh HaKadoshim? Anybody know who argued about this? The Tzdukim versus everybody else. The Tzdukim did what? The Tzdukim did it on the outside, and we know that you have to do it on the inside. So let's see inside. You should prepare it to the outside and come in. To take away from what the tzdukim think in the heart. My dosh, what did they say? They said, the pasuk says, I shall appear in front of the kapiros with a cloud. They understood that when you have a cloud already in your hand, that's how you should appear. So according to them, you should first make the pillar of cloud, then go in. In front of Hashem. That you have to put inside it mala oshon to make a proper smoking cloud. The Gemara asks the question, why do you have to have two psukim? If you go in. That means if a person Chas v'shalom goes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim with the fire, with the keteris on the fire, already is Chayim Misa. Because the Torah says that this, let's read the words of the pasuk, for Nosnes HaKateris Aloish Lifnei Hashem, Asher Aloidus, V'lo Yomos, he shouldn't die. So if a person by mistake, not by mistake, on purpose, puts the keteris outside and goes in, it's Chayim Misa. If a person puts the keteris on the fire before he goes in, so when he's going in, is he going in to do any avodah? No, because he's already done whatever needs to be done. So he's going in for no reason. When you go in for no reason, there's another chiyuv misa, because the Torah says that if anybody goes to the Beis Hamikdash for no reason, it's chayim misa. So in fact, it's chayim misa for two separate reasons. One, he's done it the wrong way around, and the pasuk says v'lo yomos. And the second thing is bi'avei kodesh coming to be finished for no reason. The Gevurah Savi asks a question that in fact there's a third reason why it's Chayim Misa. Anybody who guesses this, I did to myself, should be why it should be Chayim Misa for three reasons if you do like the tzdukim. We've said two so far. One is the pasuk says, do it in front of Hashem, v'lo yomos, you didn't do it in front of Hashem, you did it outside. Second one, you're going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim for no reason, because there's no reason to go to Kodesh HaKadoshim, you've already put it on. The whole purpose of going to Kodesh HaKadoshim is to put the keteris on the fire, and you've already got to put the keteris outside. But there's a third reason why it should be Chayim Misa. It's so straightforward that you're missing it. Yom Kippur, you're not allowed to light a fire. When you put the keteris on the coals, you're burning a fire. So it's havor, it's a chiv. You're being Chayim Misa for the fact that you've been mechal in Yom Kippur. Everything in Yom Kippur, you keep doing Yom Kippur, the Torah says you should do it. If you do it correctly, so you're not Chayim Misa. But over here, he's doing a proper avera. It's like somebody goes cooking on Yom Kippur. They say, this is cooking. This is Chamisa. What? It doesn't help him do it to Beis Hamikdash, but it's the wrong thing. He was told to do it inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and he's going to do it outside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, so he's actually doing the wrong thing. If you're doing the wrong thing, it doesn't help to say it's the Beis Hamikdash. It says Chamisa for 3 different reasons. Okay, but the Gemara is not discussing Chimisa. The Gemara says chorus, and chorus is Chai without it. So the Gemara says, he forgot about the Issa of going to Beis Hamikdash for his back Torah, and therefore it's only Chai Misa for that Torah that he knew. He bought him two. He bought him 2 kinds of keteros. One he did it on the outside, and one he did it on the inside. He's doing it correctly. So therefore you've got over here, we're talking about he brings 2 fire pans, and he does both. One on the outside, one on the inside is Chaim Misa for doing it outside. Okay, we'll stop over here. We're logged after more, and I'm not sure. Okay, well, it doesn't matter. We're full a little bit behind. We'll catch up very quickly usually. I have a very big problem that 9 days are about. You can discuss it. I don't mind. We can choose. The problem is